We're very happy to have with us today an exceptional drummer, composer, educator, Jarrett Walser, based in the New Jersey, New York area. Jarrett's performed with so many great people, Rufus Reed, Kenny Davis, and most recently with the Lance Bryant Big Band. So Jarrett, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Beautiful. Jarrett, you've had quite a ride so far. You've gotten a chance to play with so many people, got a chance to tour, play in great venues. What do you think you're most grateful for, right now in your journey? What do you think that would be?
Just the people I've met. You've met people like Rufus Reed and Kenny Davis, but even some of the other people before that. I would say my real music journey really started back in 2001 when I started doing NJPAC Jazz for Teens. And actually, Rufus Reed was one of the people that spearheaded that program. But at the time of that program, Ralph Peterson was there, and we recently just lost him about a year ago or so. People like Mark Gross and Don Braden and Mike LeDonne and Joris Teepe, Valery Panomarev, a member of the Jazz Messengers during his time, and I've actually played in his big band too, which is actually a tribute to Art Blakey. So there've been so many people and artists that I've had the chance to meet, work with, learn from, and grow from.
Yeah, I'm sure you're giving. I'm sure you're giving, that to some people right now. They're going to say, that Jarrett Walser was my mentor, and that's going to be something. Well, it is probably happening right now. You talk about all these mentors, and we receive a lot of advice, from many different people. Has there ever been any advice that someone's given you've chosen to maybe redefine or even ignore and do the opposite of that comes to mind?
In terms of advice, I mean, just I guess listening. I mean, all of them talk about listening and whether it's playing with other musicians. Actually, I can't believe I left this person off, Victor Lewis. I mean, he was the guy who said, just do your own thing and be your own person. He never forced me to go in a certain direction, and he never fit into one box. I mean, he played with people like David Sanborn, who's on the complete other side or the other spectrum of someone like who he played with, like Woody Shaw or someone like that. So I think he also had a great influence of let me and made it comfortable, made me okay with exploring different genres, not just jazz, whether it was rock or Brazilian music or anything else, big band music. I mean, he's done so much music with so many different artists from all walks of life and genres of music. So
no, it sounds like he really, he encouraged the individuality, it sounds like.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I want to, we're on this journey trying to have our own voice on the instrument and not just copy what other people have done, even though that's part of the process of learning. And, you certainly have your own voice as a drummer. And I wanted to know, is there a certain performance or time period or maybe a certain song that you felt like you truly found your voice as an improviser? Like maybe like it's not like, okay, here's my thing right now, but where did the ball start rolling from?
The ball start rolling. I mean, that's tough for me to say. I feel like changes from year to year, sometimes week to week, who I listen to, who I'm inspired by. I guess the first drummer that I really tried to emulate and get their energy was Art Blakey.
Okay.
Just his energy, the power he played with. And then again, Ralph Peterson was someone who idolized Art Blakey, along with other drummers, but that's someone that always stuck in my mind. And I think that's the first drummer that really, got me into the music. I remember falling asleep to his Caravan record with the Messengers and
Yeah, and you're such a joyous performer. Like, are there things about yourself like you that only emerge when you're playing or performing? Like, I can't get this anywhere else except by being behind the drum set.
Oh yeah, like I could practice, the same thing over and over again or do a routine and switch it up. But when it comes to performing, something else happens. I listen. I listen to what the other musicians are playing and I kind of cater it to that and I feed off of that and the energy they give me. And even, sometimes what the crowd is giving me, I'll play something. Oh, I never played that before. Let's let's explore that. And I know you experienced that because we played so many times, but things happen and we go different places and we explore. So
Yeah, I don't know what happens personally. Hopefully
well, that's a
one
good
day.
thing. I mean, you're in the moment because people ask,
Yeah,
"Hey, what was that?" Like, I don't know.
that's definitely part of it. And we you said I that playing with me and I experienced that. But I want to know, like, what do you think it is about yourself that keeps the phone ringing? Because you play with so many people. You also have your own projects. I know you do the Fanny Pack bands.
Now
And
the title Ultra S. We went through a name change.
okay, well, yeah. So, but what do you think it is about yourself that keeps the phone ringing? What do you think that you bring personally, musically, that they or people see in you?
I just try to be real open with ideas, even if I don't agree with them at the time. I'll go with them, and if there's a change that needs to be made, I'll address it. And if they want it, they can have it. Sometimes they like the change that I make, but I really try to give the person, the leader, the composer, giving them their vision of what they are hearing. And they ask me because I have my own way of doing things, but as well, I'm able to offer them what they want
Yeah,
behind.
if we're being speaking completely honestly here, like if when we're talking about improvisational music, if someone were to tell me to do something differently, I'd be like, well, why did you hire me?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
we
not so much improvisationally, maybe it's the way a tune is played. Like, oh,
sure.
this is what I'm hearing behind this tune. In terms of improvisation, that's my thing. But in terms of playing an arrangement, and I try to be sensitive to what the composer wants,
Do you like when people would say to you like, Jarrett, can you do it more like this, or would you rather just like, because some people need that guidance or direction, or do you just like when just like no one says a word? Like, which do you prefer?
Um, it depends on the situation, especially when I work with vocalists, if they can give me a certain thing that they've listened to and they have a vibe that they want to go for, or even musicians. I think it can go both ways because sometimes I need a little bit direction. What have you been listening to? What is inspiring you? What sound are you hearing? Because sometimes we may not be on the same page, and then sometimes they just put the music in front of me and they say go, and
Yeah, no,
then
I mean, it sounds like you're saying it's about openness. Is there a particular quality about the way you play that only musicians notice, you think?
hmm. I don't know what I haven't really asked musicians too often about myself. I just try to give them what they want. I find it more so with vocalists.
Right.
That because vocalists they're very sensitive to how you play behind them, very aware of what they want, what they're feeling. So when a vocalist looks at me, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the greatest feeling because
Oh,
you're
that's interesting. I mean, and you also talked about Ralph Peterson and Art Blakey, and Victor Lewis. Like, throw out the jazz people for a second because I want to know what non-jazz musician has inspired you. It could be as early when you started or even currently. Who inspires you that has nothing to do with jazz, but also we're talking about a musician.
my dad, really.
Okay.
Um, He was a pianist, vocalist, had a vocal group for many years before I was born. So I was always going to his shows and some of his friends' shows. One of them, which is not in the jazz realm, of Muzz Skilling, who was one of the original members of Living Color.
Oh,
That rock.
wow.
After he left that group, he had his own rock band called Medicine Stick, and I still have that CD to this day. And I think that was like my first rock record. I must have been 8 or 9 that I will listen to and jam to
No,
already.
I love it. And, you're someone who works quite a bit and, we're talking about openness and, just, is there something you tell yourself before you play? Like, do you have like, maybe a mantra, something you might say to yourself before you step on a stage? Or you just like, you're not even thinking about that. You're like, all right, here we are. Let's do it.
Just ready to do it. We've done all the preparation beforehand. I'm just ready to hit.
Do you ever get nervous or you just,
Oh, always. Because and it's not nervous in the same I'm gonna mess up. I just want to do right by, the artists and by the people. But after that first, measure or two of music and you're in it with the other band and everything locks together, you kind of forget about that and
yeah.
just open up. Um,
Yeah, sometimes the anxiety is good about, like, but it's like, oh, we're just waiting for the moment to happen,
yeah, yeah.
So no, that's great. And so what about any superstitions or pre-performance things you do? Like I always have to stretch my fingers out. What happens before you take the stage?
I like to, do a little snare warm up, get in my pad if I can. And just try to get in the metal space if I have
Timpani
time.
warm up?
Huh?
Timpani warm up.
More right. And if I have time, I may take 5 minutes or 2 minutes just to, just meditate before a hit and just try to really be present. I think that's the one thing I'm working on is, I mean, continually working on is just being in the moment, being present, being aware of what's happening around you, the
No,
audience.
I love it. And I also wanted to ask you because we're going down the rabbit hole. We're starting to, and this is just the beginnings of this podcast. And I also wanted to ask, is there a certain jazz standard or maybe an album that you don't have the best feelings about?
The jazz album, I don't have the best feeling.
Or a composition? Like for me, I just Green Dolphin Street is just one I just can't. I mean, I'm just really just don't like it.
Oh,
Anything?
here's one. Blue Bossa for a while was that tune. I must have played that tune since like middle school. And the only time that the one I remember, so they have the James Moody Award. They had a concert, I think it was last night with the award winners and they get a scholarship. And I sat in with them, I think 2 or 3 years ago because their drummer couldn't make it. And then someone called Blue Boss. I was like, man, I hate that tune, man. Like I played that tune so much in middle school, every jazz program, and the vibe is just that beginner jazz tune. And then we played it anyway, but with that knowledge, like, all right, let's make it our own. Let's make it different. Let's not make it the school, the what's the term I'm looking for?
No,
Kind of.
I totally get it. What about any venues or jazz clubs that you think have an undeserved good reputation or an undeserved bad reputation, or somewhere that should have more, customers and clientele?
Place I should have good more customers and clientele. Well, I haven't played in the city a lot recently, not too much.
Same.
Jersey clubs. Um, Actually, when I've been talking about this, the only like true jazz club out there is Clement's Place in Newark. Um, there's no food. You really just come there for the music. I mean, you have places like Shanghai Jazz, but it's a restaurant. So I really love Clement's Place for that one reason. It's really a true jazz club in the
No,
sense that
that's
you're
great
just
because, back in the 1960s, there were way more jazz clubs that the artists got to play. And I wanted to ask you if you could time travel back to the 1960s and you're a drummer working in New York or something, if you could put together your own band, it could be a trio, it could be a quartet, it could be a quintet for one night only. Who's going to be there? Who's going to be in the Jarrett Walser? You tell me.
man. So I'm on drums. Who would I play with on piano? Man. Oh, I know who I want to play with. Ahmad Jamal.
Okay.
Ahmad Jamal's trio. Take out Vernell Fournier and put me in there, man. I mean, those cats were so swinging. Um, and I remember, and there's just actually records where there are no drums on it, and I would play along with them. And I feel like that's the greatest thing for a drummer to play with records that don't have drums on them. See how the piano and the bass are hooking up and get into that.
You know what? Do you know what Moises is? That new app that came out?
I have that.
Yeah. It's like the greatest thing because it's like
Oh,
now
yeah.
you can just take out the drums for anything you wanted to.
Oh yeah, I did that for a gig recently because I got the charts. We didn't have time to rehearse, so I was like, "All right, I got the tracks, and I just listened to them and without the drums and filled them in." And it's a totally different feeling having no drums and you being kind of the creator behind it. And then when I got to the gig, it's almost like I played with the band already.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
Almost.
different time. I also wanted to ask you, you started, if you could go back to, your earliest music lesson. You took lessons, I in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could go back to your earliest music lesson or that time period, what's something you wish you had known about? Like maybe something you had a breakthrough moment about later on.
Um, I think technique wise, I started taking drum lessons at the age of 5. Um, and I was really into reading at the time. For some reason, I was a weirdo. I enjoyed reading music for a drummer. I mean, granted, I also played, piano and trumpet, so that those things were kind of necessary for those instruments for sure. But reading, learning rudiments. But one thing that I later on really focused on was my technique, probably until college. I wish I did a little bit more earlier on, kind of building up chops and stuff like that. But I was more really into just grooving, swinging. Technique wasn't a huge thing to me.
No, we all have our own journey, and we're talking a lot about music, but I also want we get inspiration from a number of places. What's the best non-musical experience you've had that has directly inspired what you do as an artist?
Um, Poetry, working with poets actually.
Working with poets.
Yeah, I remember this was kind of music, but I know I had friends that were doing poetry and they wanted music behind it, and I've never played music behind poetry. So I feel like poetry, any sort of dance, watching a dance performance, um, yeah, things like that, outside of granted, it's all the arts, but I mean, I grew up in a family of artists. My friends were artists, outside of music specifically.
Do you think that's the most random place you found inspiration, or there's something even more? Because I mean, poetry is, still
Okay.
kind of on the surface,
Yeah, I got you. Where did I get musical inspiration? Oh, COVID was quite a time. So I remember I was working this delivery gig and the windshield wipers were going, right? And I remember as a kid, I would always try to keep time with the windshield wipers or the hazard lights or your left turn signal. So I
Right.
literally the musical track based off of the rhythms from those other objects. That was kind of a weird time for me.
No, that's great. What do you think is the most out of place thing or, genre of music that's influenced your current, way of playing?
Hmm.
It could be a genre or a style or, a scale or something. What's influenced you, uh, that's kind of out of place, you think, musically?
I really was into like heavy metal bands like
See, you
Meshuggah,
wouldn't think that. You would not
Lamb of
think that.
God, Love Lamb of God.
We want to
Very
know, well, no, we want to know this. And, to me, it seems like that type of music, heavy metal, like there's not too many mistakes that happen because it's very structured.
very
Um,
strong. Yeah.
right, right. But we're playing music, you're playing music that's, made up on the spot. And there's a lot of mistakes
Hmm.
that happen all the time. I mean, it's a lot, like tremendous amount of mistakes. Has there ever been a mistake that comes to mind that, maybe you were recording or playing where the mistake ended up being like, oh, this is great.
Oh, yeah, they're on this gig. So we were talking about solo forms, and I think it was the bass solo was supposed to go first, then the pianist was supposed to go to build into like the drum shout section or a drum solo, and then we're playing, and then it starts with this with the piano solo. And I was like, okay, so what are we gonna do after this? The engine's gonna kind of die with the bass solo, so unconsciously. I just started filling in and going into the shout chorus, and Kenny's playing bass, and he just stops and lets me go and take the chorus. And then he was like, "Hey, that worked." And we
No,
talked.
I
I was like, "Wait, it was supposed to be a bass solo first, but
no,
it worked."
you never think these things like, and they're probably in the moment you're like, oh man, this is not good. But then
I
it ends up being a, something that's really great.
Yeah. And another instance of that happening was we were playing this arrangement of Lover Man by Billy Childs. Eddie Allen was playing trumpet, and for some reason I forgot to go back, I think to the bridge or something, and I skipped to like the next A, and he heard it how I was anticipating it, and he just started playing the melody from that point, and everybody went with me. And after the gig, I was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." I was like, "No, that's cool. I heard it. We were all there." Like, and those things happen often, You'd be surprised.
No, I've experienced them many times. Has What's the most unusual piece of advice you've ever received? I mean, keeping time, listen is one thing, but like, what's the weirdest thing someone's ever tried to tell you? They're like, what is this person saying to me?
Ooh, the weirdest thing.
You don't have to name the person, but something that's been kind of unusual, like, you should really, I mean, I mean, one time, like, someone at a jam session told me, like, uh, he's like, if you talk back to them at a jam session back in the day, you would never work again, so shut up. Or
I don't know. I think I just block it out if it's too weird. If it sometimes I've probably forgotten something weird someone's ever told for me.
yeah, I
But
remember when we used to play at Garage, how there would be like one person, like this drunk guy who would always come up to you. He just never left you alone. And you just like, you were not fazed by it. You just put on a poker face or something,
I've always been that way. I've never tried to let those things get to me. But outside of the music, I think it was Victor Lewis was like, yeah, man, if you can get like a chiropractor or a rougher to put those muscles in place. So I think just being healthy. I mean, you've been on a health journey and just keeping your body, fit. Because for a long time, not a too long time, but I remember I would have lower back pain from playing drums. It's like, why is that? Like I'm only in my 20s, so I started doing yoga and riding my bike, and I think just general health advice is always good advice. Even though it's not music, it affects how you play, how you feel behind the kit.
No, I mean, I think you're totally right. Before we wrap up, I wanted to just ask you, one more thing. This is kind of a loaded question, but let's say a psychologist analyzed your music. What do you think they would say about your personality or inner life?
Oh man, got a little bit of darkness in me, and at times some light.
Darkness.
Oh yeah, man. I've been literally have a tune called Gotham City.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I have moments of levity and of
Are you trying to like as you get older and mature, are you trying to let go of the darkness, or do you feel like it's good just to have a little bit in there?
just dig into it. It's fun, be on the dark side a little bit. Um, I know I've written tunes, one of my bossa novas that I wrote was called Lonely Night. So I was chilling up in my room, I was by myself and loving being by myself, just feeling a little lonely, but hey, it
No, I
is what
mean, being alone is it's necessary if you're an artist,
yeah.
you need that space to just be with yourself. Well,
My
Jarrett,
band.
it's been an absolute pleasure. I
Oh,
want to
one more
thank you
thing I
for
was gonna
doing
say.
this.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say one more thing though.
Yeah, yeah, sure, go for it.
A lot of my tunes end in D flat. Like in U.L.T.R.A, they look at my chorus like, dude, why are you writing everything in D flat? Like ends with a D flat chorus. Like I don't know, that's just where my voice is, because I sing a lot of my melodies, so I guess that's where my voice sits.
D flat is where it's at. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll put it there.